So our online music theory from ABRSM is a new way of delivering music theory exams through ABRSM. And today, both myself and Dr. Yueh will be presenting different parts of how to prepare and how to register for this exam. And a little brief introduction into what are some things that we will cover today. An overview of ABRSM's exams in general. We'll focus on the theory syllabus updates. There are some improvements and updates to the theory syllabus. We will be talking about also the online system requirements that are a part of this ABRSM online theory delivery of the exam. And then at the end, we will have a Q&A session, which is followed by setting up an ABRSM account. So once again, if you're brand new to ABRSM and you don't yet have an online account portal, you can stay until the very end where we do a step-by-step walkthrough. But if you would like to just stay up until the Q&A, you're also welcome. The session is an hour and a half. The first 3 parts we will cover within the hour, and then the Q&A and the account setup is the final 30 minutes of this presentation. So a little overview about ABRSM. ABRSM is known to be an assessment provider, but ABRSM as an organization is an international charity organization. It does have 127 rather years of history in the music benchmarking, and we deliver over 670,000 exams in a year over 93 countries. And the achievements are recognized around the world. And so with the ABRSM assessments, the organization also provides music relief, publication, and different performance opportunities all around the world as well. A little bit about the assessment part of what ABRSM delivers. Within the assessment registration, the parents, teachers, students, or adult students, so anyone over 18 is able to make these exam bookings. And so the adults are considered the applicants, and therefore they are the official account holders. And so students are not, or students who are under 18 are not the ones to apply, but rather the adults will apply on their behalf and are the official account holders. The students themselves are the ones who appear for the exams, and they're referred to as candidates. And so within one applicant account, there could be multiple candidates, because if you're a teacher, you can have multiple students. If you're a parent, you can also sign up on behalf of several children. And so the students themselves will not sign up, but the applicant or the adults will. And the exams are actually graded and assessed in London. And for the online theory exam specifically, it is done through a PSI service, which is a third-party service that does all different remote assessment around the world. So they are one of the biggest providers of online exams and online exam systems. And a little bit about this particular online theory exam that we will be discussing today. Just so everyone knows, the online theory exam is for grades 1 through 5 only. Currently, our 6 through 8 grades are provided in person still, and they are provided at actual physical exam centers with printed exam papers. And so these exams actually will have a different date from the online exams that we're going to be talking about specifically today. And they also will be delivered in the traditional way, or the way that we use to deliver all theory exams. So grades 6 through 8 Nothing will change about those exams. They will still be in person. However, the online exams that we are talking about today will be updated. It is remotely assessed. It is computer-based. There are very specific system requirements which we will go through in detail, and there are some changes to the syllabus. So again, the online exams are only for the grades 1 through 5, and they are only online for the grades 1 through 5. There's not an option for 6 through 8 to be online. Now, so if we are ready to take our grades 1 through 5 exam, what do we need to know first? So let's talk about the contents of what needs to happen. And so the first preparational step that we need to know is that there are changes to the exam syllabus. And that detail you can find on the ABRSM. It can be found on the ABRSM website, and there are also video guidance on YouTube under the ABRSM channel that has all of these details. All of these links actually that are on the slideshow will be provided to all of our participants today. So you're welcome to go through them, and they will take you to the appropriate places that gives those information. Another thing to know about the preparation step is that the online exam delivery is updated. The standards of what's asked for each grade level will remain the same, but the format will be different. So by way of delivering the exam online, obviously, it will be different from pencil and paper. And so because the grading is different, the way that the format that the students will take the exam will be different. We do have increased supporting materials to prepare students to take their exam in this format. And also the results will be made available to the students online as well through your account portals. They are available 7 days after the exam, so it's much sooner than it used to be. The certificates will be mailed out within 6 weeks. And so that portion sort of remains the same just because it's still by way of postal delivery. So at this time, I would like to invite Dr. Yueh to talk more specifically about the content and what we need to prepare in more detail. So at this time, we are going to take a look at a document that has been prepared.
Natalie, can everybody hear me? Okay, all right, that's good. All right, so basically, the standards remain the same. The musical understanding and the fundamental concepts that are being tested remains the same. The value of these exams, the standards and the levels, nothing has changed. And the time, for the exams, the duration of the actual exams remain the same. So therefore, if it's a 2-hour exam for grade 5, it will remain a 2-hour exam for grade 5. If it were used to be 1.5-hour exam for grade 1, it will still remain as a 1.5-hour exam for grade 1, and so forth. And the accessibility adapted for neurodiverse learners in the past will always remain the same. It may also have some enhanced features, which we'll go over that a little bit later. I think Natalie will have the technical issues that you may have under your concern, and these will be addressed later. But the changes are some of those that were involved in the syllabus, but they sound like a lot of changes, but they're really more format, oriented. So let me go over some of these changes with you. So the exam format and the types of questions, because now it's going to be online, obviously they will have to be different. But one of the positive things, which some of you would really welcome, is the reduced reading demand. The kind of questions and the directions they put forth now will use more concise language. And you will get to see a sample question later on, and we'll see how this is much more simplified. Of course, there will be more multiple choice questions now, and rest assured that the number of possible answers or the distractors will be very limited. The matching, you'll have the ability to select from a pull-down list menu and click on the correct answer, as you see. There will be some fill in the blanks question in which the candidate will type into an answer box. And there are also going to be true and false questions. And this is the funnest part, the drag and drop. You will get to actually see a sample of that later on. So the drag and drop is probably, I think it's the most interesting feature for some of the candidates, especially the younger ones, because it's almost like playing a game. And then the total marks, instead of marking out of 100 points, will now be marked out of only 75 points. You will need 50 points to pass, 60 for merit, and 65 for distinction. So these are the changes to the format and the types of questions. In terms of the syllabus, I have listed sort of a table for you to kind of look at what is going to be different. And again, this is dictated by the fact that it's being online. And so some things are just not feasible to do online. For instance, in grade 1, where candidates are requested, used to write out copy, maybe one measure or two measures out of a musical example given, that will be removed. Obviously, they will not be able to do so anymore once they go online. In the grade 2, the choice of harmonic or melodic form of minor scales will now be removed. It's only going to be harmonic form. In grade 3, the questions about phrase structure will be removed. So there will no longer be questions relating to phrase structure. Mark the phrase structure from this to this. They will no longer be there. In grade 5, the transposition of an entire melody between clefs will be removed. But the fundamental knowledge of transposition between clefs and keys are still required. And we will show you an example of that later on. Identifying the 6/4 chord to 5/3 chord progression on the dominant note in any keys is also removed. And in its place, it will be identifying name cadences as perfect, imperfect, and plagal. And in which case you will see that this is actually aligning itself with the requirements in the oral training, as well as the sight reading part. You will see these things more aligned between the different aspects of a grade. Now, let me show you right here at this point what it would look like. So this is a cadence example. So here you will simply just check the box that corresponds to this particular D major example here. So if this is in D major, this is a 4/1 chord. So therefore, this will be a plagal cadence, and its student or the candidate will simply select and check the plagal box. Okay, and obviously this is a PDF file that I'm not able to demonstrate the actual clicking, but this will be something that the students will be able to do. And so these are some of the sample questions you can see. Okay. Now to return to the original, we're going to continue. And then this is probably the most welcome list. A lot of teachers would have, like to see a long time ago, is an updated list of terms and signs. Okay, now it's going to focus more on the absolute relevant knowledge that is required and useful to learners at any particular grade. The biggest reduction is on that list of German terms. So let me give you a look. You will be able to have a whole list of this. These are all online, and we're also going to provide you the links to these. So you can see the French terms and the German terms are greatly reduced. The Italian terms probably remain pretty much the same, but the French and the German terms are greatly reduced. So this is a chart that you will see what terms and signs are actually going to be required as part of that. Okay, returning to our discussion about the changes in the syllabus. Let me pause just briefly at this point. Is there any question? Everybody kind of following along? I mean, if you have any extensive questions, we're going to answer that in the Q&A. But I just want to make sure everybody is kind of up to speed at this point, following along, that we're going to have some changes and what the main changes are going to be. The details of that we will answer in the Q&A session at the end, but I just want to make sure everybody is kind of following along at this point and nobody has been left behind. So if we can have a thumbs up show just to make sure that we're kind of on the same page. Okay, good. All right, that's always encouraging. All right, so that's really about it as far as the changes are concerned. They're kind of minimal. Now, what is important that comes up is the amount of resources that will be available to for preparation purposes is going to be increased. So after all those years we've been using theory in practice, which the materials there as far as the concepts are still very much relevant, and teachers are still very much welcome to use those as the primary source of material. But ABRSM has published a series of workbooks called Discovering Music Theory Workbooks, and they come along with answer books as well. And one of those, one of the really nice features about these books are at the end of each of those theory workbooks, there's an actual sample test that students can use, and it's pretty much constructed in the format that the actual online exam will be done. So to show you kind of a sample page, let's see if I have any luck to click on this. So the ABRSM Discovering Music Theory workbook, this is a great one page. These are sample pages for it, okay? So if you look at, this is the table of contents, you will see, you know, they still have each chapter dealing with a specific topic. So the rhythm, the pitch, and the rhythm sometimes is split up into two parts as well as the pitch, so that you can see the groupings where they talk about the basic time values, bars and meters, time signatures and all that. But then it also goes into the semiquaver, the 16th notes, and the grouping of the notes and the rest. So they kind of break it up a little bit. And then so does the pitch. And then you see there's a part 3 of the rhythm. And if you, as you look down, you know, it's organized into all these different topics, just like the old workbook. And then the practice exam paper, which I talked about earlier, is available at the end of this. And all these workbooks come with answer books, so the teachers are able to order them, and you know, for easy reference and for easy grading if you want to, if you have especially a lot of students, and then it's kind of mind-boggling to do them all at once. And here are some sample pages of how the layout is. Okay, you see it's a lot more colorful, probably more engaging to a lot of the younger students. And this is kind of a fun, there's a little table for them to see. So you see the verbiage has been reduced, but you know, it's a lot more pictorial, which is kind of in line with the actual online exam tests. Okay, so you can see, you know, a semi-brief would look like what, you know, so the student would draw it obviously, and the reference is right above there. Okay, how many counts? So this is kind of a little fill in the table, a little exercise activity for the students to do. They have a lot of little suggestions here. Try clapping the different time values so that students can explore with the teacher. The teaching still remains with the teacher, but I believe this whole the purpose of this is to engage the students at the students level more, so that the students are able to follow along as much as they can. Now, obviously, for a very, very young beginner, let's say a 3 or 4-year-old, they might be able to understand the pictures, but they still might need a little bit of help, adult help, to decipher the actual wording of the directions. But a lot of them are kind of self-explanatory just by looking at the pictures. So this is definitely an enhancement to help prepare the students. And you can see there are a lot of reinforcement kind of exercises to help. Okay, so this is what they look like. And this is also on the website. So therefore, you can easily, we'll give you all the links, and you can easily refer back to the website and then click and download these. These are all downloadable PDF files that you can easily refer to and use for your students or for your own reference. So you here say all these sample pages are from all the different grades. Now, in addition to that, they have always in the past put out sample papers for the music theory exam. Of course, they have, and these are the 2020 sample papers, which means these are tailored specifically with the online theory exam format in mind. Okay, they're available to grades through 1 through 5. They all have model answers to go along with them for your convenience. These, obviously, you have to purchase either through a music dealer or from the ABRSM shop. They're not downloadable for free on the website. Therefore, I did not provide that link for you. And then along with that, there are more music theory sample papers and model answers that you can purchase. So these are additional publications, again, available from your music dealers if you want to order them, or through ABRSM shop. So these are the publications. Now, then on top of it, there are all these free downloadable PDFs. There are sample questions in PDF formats. Okay, so here's a reference sheet for you that you may welcome. This is reference sheet. Summarizes all the changes and some of the, well, not changes, but what are the new things that, for example, the total mark is 75, okay? They have a little reference point in the terminology. The British terminology of bar refers to our American terminology of measure, breath, double whole note, semi-brief, etc., all that. And I believe this is displayed. Correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie. I believe it's displayed at the beginning of the online test for the candidates to look at. And I believe this is also sent out after you've registered for the candidates to refer to beforehand, correct?
I believe so. And also it is listed in all of the printed materials as well. And so everyone is aware that both are accepted.
Right, yes. Okay, and then you see you see additional info sheets. Okay, so for example, they even give sample questions here. This is an example of a multiple choice question. All right, so you will look at this and you will select the correct answer and you will click on the correct answer. Okay, so this is what it would look like actually on the screen. The questions are displayed one at a time. So, the students are not going to be overwhelmed and then have to navigate all over the place just to get to the right question. Okay, here's another example of a drag and drop question. So for example, these are the answer options. The students can actually, and we'll show you in the actual sample test that you can actually select the note, which is the corresponding note. So for example, this is C sharp and let's say this is D flat. You'll be able, in the actual online test, you'll be able to drag that D flat and then place it right next to it. It's kind of fun. I tried it out and it was kind of intoxicating after a while. Okay, and here's an example of a fill in the blanks. So the students will actually type into this box, and Natalie will explain to you how some of those technological restrictions out there in order to ensure the exams are not having cheating issues. And here's another example of a type of question. In this one, this is again, they show you all the possible answers. Okay, and in which case you will just click on the answer, corresponding answer in the box A, you will click, what chord that is, in box B, what is that, so on and so forth. So that gives you an idea what it will actually look like. And again, bear in mind, each page that I show you will be displayed one at a time at the actual online test. So this reference sheet is available on ABRSM website. And again, we have included it as a link for you when we send out this reference guide for you. And I've earlier shown you already that cadence example, what we have already looked at. So, this is the sheet really. Okay, so I have it actually in 2 places. Okay, so moving ahead a little bit, other free online resources that are available to you are the actual sample online practice exams. Okay, now we're not going to take the entire exam, obviously, but we are going to show you what it will look like when the student actually clicks on it. So let's take a look at a grade 1 example. It takes a while to load up because it's actually taking you to that. Okay, so this is what your student will see after they log in and everything and all that stuff. Your student will actually see the testing area is grade 1. Okay, the number of questions, 69 questions. Okay, this is the ABRSM test. The student will actually click on start. It tells you what the time limit is, and they explain you can revisit any questions and change your answer. Okay, you cannot choose to suspend or pause the exam once started. So once you click on start, you got to get going. All right, so visit the bathroom and everything beforehand. And then the results will be released by ABRSM by the published date. So these are things that they tell you, and this is the actual screen you will see. The test properties also tells you can navigate between questions. There is a back button, there's a previous button, and there's a forward continue button. You'll be able to see that. And you can change an answer by selecting edit. So it's not once you click, that's the end. No, you do get to change anything within that testing period. If you do temporarily lose internet connection, I'm sure everybody's concerned about that during your exam, you will be able to regain access as long as it's within 3 hours of the scheduled exam start time. Natalie will go over more of the techno issues with you. And the feedback will be given together with the end result. This will go with you at the end as well, okay? So let's just take a quick look what it would look like. So if I click on the start, so the first, this is one of the learning challenged accessibility adjustments and adaptability things that ABRSM have opted for to provide for all neurodiverse learners to have the best assessment environment. So most of us will probably pick this, but some people really like a higher contrast. So you do have a choice to click on this. You do have a choice to click on that. But I don't think you can go back to change, can you? I didn't try that. So, okay. So let's say we click on this, okay? The screen will be yellow, pale yellow in the background to provide a slightly, different contrast level for you to do. And this is the part I was telling you about earlier on. The instructions are very clear. You need to show all pieces of rough paper. And this is part of the thing that Natalie will go through with you. Okay, all these things we've kind of mentioned and talked about, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. But you see there's a next button that allows you to continue, go on skipping between questions. And then there's a previous button on every page. Oh, they do let you change style. Look at that. Okay. And then they kind of keep track here where you are at the test at any given point. So this is kind of a nice reference point as well. You see this button, End Test. When you click on that, it's not the end of the world yet, but you do, you do get some warning, but ending the test means you have completed all it, you're satisfied with it, it's time for you to review the whole test. There's a clear button where it lets you to redo something. Okay, so let's just say we move on a little bit to see what it looks like. So the first question has to do with rhythm. So they're categorized for you, so they're not going to switch back and forth. So this is categorized for you. And the first one is the rhythm, and it's on the terminology. You can see all these. They provide you with that reference again. And you will see this. So let's just test it out. So this one, we count it out, okay? And we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say I do this. Say 4 time. You click on it, says answer. Now goes to question number 2. You see that in the bottom? You have 1, you have already answered. 2 is the one unanswered. So it's in red. Okay, so for example, like this, you click on that, answer, and so on and so forth. You all kind of get the picture. And so it has a navigation button, which allows you to see which questions have been answered and which have not. So if in case your student, let's say you're a candidate, you've went ahead, you skip a question because you didn't want to dwell on a question, you have to think about it a little bit, you want to go back to it, this will let you reference it very easily. So you don't have to click through every single question. You can actually have at a glance where it is, where indeed you have skipped questions. So it gives you at a glance, which is a very nice, I really think it's a very nice feature there. Okay, and here's your timer. Keeps track how much time you have left. Okay, you can also flag the question. Okay, so you see under number 3, I haven't answered it, I have it flagged. Or I can even answer it and flag it, then that way I can come back and double check, because if I'm not sure, I want to come back to it later on, I can do that. And again, when I go to my navigation, you see that, it's unanswered, and you can also check to see what is flagged and unflagged. Okay. All right. So going back to I'm not going to go through the whole test, even though it took probably only 10 minutes to do it, but it's probably not a good idea to spend 10 minutes doing that, especially when going between screens takes so long. Okay, I have to end test. So you wouldn't let me go out, see? So you can't just abandon the test. You actually have to end the test. I guess I'm going to fail this test because I have 67 unanswered questions, and this is really sad. And it asks you, are you sure you want to end the test? Okay, so it's that nuclear option that keeps popping up for you. Okay, and this is the result. And it will be a very, very sad result. Okay, it will show your score is 2 out of 75, and it will show you a breakdown of what had happened. Unanswered, correct. Okay. All right, so basically, that's what you have to look forward to. It sounds a little daunting at first, but this is really, truly a very nice, I would say, really a wonderful feature for a lot of students, candidates taking this test, because it's become a little bit of a fun thing too. I mean, like I said, I have fun doing it. Okay, so that's the sample online test. Now, other free downloadable PDFs, you see there's actual sample papers that you can print off, download and print off, and your students can do. And these are free on the website. And this looks very much so like the sample test at the end of the Discovering Music Theory workbook. So you have more sample tests that you can access without having to buy yet another set. Okay, and again, they provide one for every single grade, and they come with model answers. So as you see, and again, these are links that we provided for you. And then they have quiz just for terms and signs. So if you don't want to go through the entire exam, just to get to the terms and signs, you want to just work on the terms and signs, here it is. And the fun thing is, I think they do scramble it up and they're a little bit random. So I tried it, and I tried it twice, and they were different questions. So the students keep going back. So it's almost like a little game for them to reinforce the whole process as well. Okay. Let's see. Wait. There it is. Okay. So for example, the fermata, what is it? Pause on a note. So they can do it just for the fun of it and review that and go on, so forth and all that. Okay, so again, I won't go through the entire test. You can see legato. Okay, now how do I get out of it? There it is. Okay. So you got a taste of how that looks. And again, go play around with it. It's really fun. Again, one for each grade. And then the additional resources here I have listed, they are in addition to what ABRSM provides. These are some things that we've come across ourselves that are very much aligned with the ABRSM syllabus and the format sometimes. So the music theory for young musicians, grades 1 through 5, and they do pretty much correspond. And I believe Natalie can talk a little bit more about those because she has more personal experience with them. Natalie, I'm going to turn it over to you to speak briefly about those particular publications.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so there are other resources that are available from other publishers. Just very quickly, the ABRSM things that Dr. Muir just talked about, they look like this. So a lot of these are available for purchase already on the ABRSM shop, but there are other resources published by other companies. There is one called the Poco Music Studio. Some of you may have seen this. And this one actually aligns very well with the ABRSM as well. I would say, honestly, that for a long time, I would have considered this to be much more student-friendly just because of the colorful publishing and so on. But since the ABRSM update, I think they're very much comparable now because the new ABRSM books are also just as user-friendly. And so in that sense, they're both very good resources to have. Another one is called Music Theory Made Easy. This one only goes up to their level 5, which is actually quite, not exactly the level 5 of ABRSM, but I would say this is a nice one to just use for teaching theory, not necessarily to take ABRSM exam, but it's just a nice one to get students started on music theory and so on. And so, so those are the books to show you, but Dr. Yueh, do you want to continue or shall we move on to, okay.
So basically, I'm just going to wrap up here because there's only a few more resources. You're probably already familiar with is the ABS, the ABRSM Music Theory Trainer. And I think that's a really good one to use now because, just the manipulation of, the mouse and all that, the click and drag and all that, that will familiarize your student if they are not already completely familiarized with the process and the little movements to get them used to preparing for the online theory exam. And there, of course, there are websites. There are various non-ABRSM teacher support websites that you can go on to Google or as well as YouTube. There are a lot of them, YouTube videos on how to do this, how to do that. And I've included 2 of them. It's not a special endorsement or anything, but those are the 2 that just pop up when I looked, and grade 5 theory seems to be a major concern for everybody. And this one, if I can just kind of show you through that, you will see that it's an actual video. We're not going to play the actual video through, but you will see that this is someone actually walking through how to do these videos. Now, I did not share the sound with you on this, but there's obviously sound on it, but this is somebody actually showing you how to work through each one of those problems. So for a student that's doing self-study, or for a teacher that's trying to help a student find additional information, this is always a good way to do it. Okay, so this is one resource on YouTube that I find personally can be very helpful for some students. There are plenty of them. Once you get hold of one, you're going to see all the other ones too. Then there's also one specifically explaining intervals, because in grade 5, sometimes some students have trouble, and I apologize for YouTube commercials. Okay, so students sometimes find it a little bit boggling trying to figure out, how do you figure out this is an augmented fifth versus a perfect fifth, and versus a diminished fifth, or all that. And this is a video that will actually show you, walk you through the process of doing that. Count to letter names, how to determine the size of the interval first, then determine the quality of the interval. So they will actually have musical examples on there to show you. So these 2 particular videos I'm just putting on there to show you that there are resources like that your students and the parent that's trying to help the student reinforce additional reinforcements can really find that very helpful. So there are plenty of those. And as I mentioned, there are plenty of websites that are sometimes other teacher groups or other teachers helping teachers, made by individual teachers. But I'm not going to list them all, because there's a whole slew of them, and it just tailors to different people's needs and easily accessible for you. Okay, and then the 2 helpful links here is just basically a summary of some of the things up there. That links you to an ABRSM website, and then you can go through. Remember, as with all ABRSM website visits, I encourage you to scroll all the way down so that you don't miss anything that might be at the bottom of the page. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Natalie, so that she can go over the technical issues that you need to be aware of. Thank you, Natalie.
All right, thank you, Dr. Yueh. So let's go back actually to our previous slide. I'm going to show, sorry, this is a little bit difficult to navigate. One second. We have so many screens. Okay. All right, so let me go back to the screen. We just had talked about the content. And so now that we know what are all the materials that's available to the students for preparation, and also all of the materials that's available for the teachers, I want to show you the different updates to the systems. I don't want to dwell too much on all of the details, because these are things that are available to you on the website, so that you can look at what's required. It's never any fun to sit through 20 minutes of talking about systems, but I just want to highlight things on what is necessary to take the exam. So first of all, for all ABRSM assessments from now on, as many of you already know, you must already create an ABRSM account. So you must log on to your ABRSM portal in order to register for any exams at all. So that is the first step in your systems that you will have to make sure you take. And then the next thing is, after you have already signed up for the account and log into your portal and book your exam, you will be provided a link to download and install the exam software. So after you download the software, that exam, that browser that you open will be like the one that Dr. Yueh just showed to us, with each of the questions popping up one at a time with that process or progress bar at the bottom. It'll look like that. But you won't have access to it unless you have created your portal and book your exam. Then you will be given a link to download and install the software. So it's recommended that you please do this 2 weeks before the exam date. Please don't wait until the morning of to do this, because you want to make sure that it's compatible with your systems at home. It is available on both PC and Mac, but you do want to run the system test and checks to make sure that everything runs properly. And I'll show you real quick a screen just so that you can see this. But once you download and install and run the system check, there is actually, again, a practice test that you can take that has no grades or any bearing on your exam, but just so that you can run through the process of, oh, this is what I need to do, and this is how to do it. So do that 2 weeks before the exam. And then, of course, please carefully read and follow through the guidance that's provided. There's also very specific instructions on taking a room scan and introducing yourself. Someone had a question earlier in the chat, what is the responsible adult? What if a child cannot read the questions? So all of those things are actually very much clearly laid out in the guidance documents. There needs to be a responsible adult in the room. So even if a student already is very technologically savvy and knows exactly what to do, there needs to be an adult that's in the room to make sure that all the rules are being followed. And that responsible adult can act as the person to read the directions out to the student, but the adult cannot touch the computer or do anything for the child. The child still has to do the actual clicking and an actual exam. And so this is, again, the reason why it's so important 2 weeks before the exam day that you do run a system check and you do a practice, because then the parent child or the teacher student can actually go through the process of, okay, if I read, then you click, or if I read, then you drag. And so you do all of that practice prior to the exam day. The exam does need to be done in one sitting. There are specific guidance that talks about, you can have water with you, just like in an in-person exam, you can have water with you, but it needs to be in a clear bottle. There can't be anything printed on the cup per se. You are allowed a bathroom break with just one, and you do need to come back within, I believe it's 10 minutes. And so everything is actually very, very specific. And so I don't want to belabor all the points, but just to show you real quick, how do you access all of this information that I just talked about? And so I'm going to take you to the actual website. Web browser. So I'm at the abrsm.org website, the ABRSM general website, and I go to our exams, online theory, and it takes me to this screen right here. I scroll past the banner, which just tells me about COVID related waivers and such. And then I go down to the online theory tab. So it has 4 little colorful squares that has all the information that you need to know regarding the exam, but specifically about the systems that I was mentioning to earlier. You go to assessment delivery, and when you're under that subpage, it gives you all of the information on how to set up, what are the requirements, and just also resources such as links and video tutorials and such on how to set up. But for our current purposes, I want to draw your attention to the systems requirement. And so again, here is a document on exactly what is required for you to download the software, the PSI software. So it has all of the technical things right here. And also, let me go back to this page. Also, the software installation document tells you all about how to download and install your software. And it also tells you, again, the process that's required. And so again, once you have booked your exam, you are provided the link to download. When you do download the link, you will see something like this pop up on your screen. You click on download software, and then it actually has all of these screens that will follow after that. You agree to the terms and conditions, and then you can actually install and bring up the screen again. So all of this, once again, is something that you want to do prior to 2 weeks prior to taking the exam. You also want to make sure, let me make sure that I am at the correct place. You also want to make sure that you are clicking in your exam on the correct test. And so when you first set it up, after you've gone through those screens of downloading, it will also take you to this screen where you can select what type of exam. You will be given a practice test or the real test when it's exam time. And so you want to make sure you select the correct one. And this is where you would put in the name of your candidate and so on. So all of these information is right here for you. How to do the room scan, how to show your photo ID that you are indeed who you are, how to make sure that your face is always visible and that it's not backlit. And of course, you have to be directly looking at the screen the whole time and not looking away or give any sort of not to show that you're being dishonest or anything like that. So the room scan, which is explained in this document, is something that you do before the start of the exam, and you do need to show that there is nothing that are in the room that denotes that you have any, you're attempting to cheat or anything like that. So let me go back to this slide again. So you want to show that you're not having books and materials or sticky notes and things like that out in the room. You also need to show that you are the person that you are saying you are taking the exam. And then lastly, during the exam, the software will not allow you certain keystrokes. And so again, this is something that is in the document. You will not be able to copy paste. It will not allow your keyboard to do the control copy or paste. You cannot do that in any of the fields. It also will not allow you to open additional tabs in your browser. So the browser where your exam is, that's the only browser that will stay open. It also will be recording you the entire time, and that's why all the students' faces have to be visible. If there is an adult that's assisting, per se, reading the questions, they have to be visible as well. If you do need to stop and take a bathroom break, you do say to your camera, I will be going on a bathroom break. And then when you leave and come back, all of that's documented. And so while not the entire time someone is watching the exam, the PSI system and the proctors are selectively watching different ones, different exams, but it's also recorded. So after the exam concludes, there is a process where there are flags that the proctors put on any exam that they feel like there may be dishonesty. And so your exam results might be delayed because they might have to follow up on, the reasons why it might be flagged. And so there are a lot of checks and balance in place for the exam as it's being taken. And so everything, again, is laid out carefully in the documents that's on the website. And so it sounds like it's a lot, but if you compare it to taking it in person, it's not a totally different experience other than that it is now in an online environment. And instead of appearing at an exam venue, you are downloading a software and you're appearing on time for that exam through the software browser. So in summary, just the key takeaway is that everything is now online. And so the portal, in order for you to become an applicant, that's online. The booking system is online. To do the exam is online. The actual system to take the exam is online. The assessment of the exam is also online. The result is also delivered online. So once again, many people have asked if all these links and everything we say is going to be made available. Yes, it will be. And as a matter of fact, all of these are exact links to these things. So when the handout's made available to you, feel free to click on any of them. And then also, in addition to it being online, it's also updated, it's improved, it's made more streamlined. So as Dr. Yueh has shared with us, the syllabus, the format, the grading scale, all of the resources and support, all of that has been improved and streamlined. And again, these are all live links that will take you to all of those things. And then lastly, it is also available for booking very soon. So in about a month is when the booking period will start. And we are now in session 2. Session 1 back in March was canceled. Well, we are in March, but the booking for that would have been in January. That was canceled because of COVID-related issues, but now the session 2 booking period will become available on April 6th through the 13th. That means that is the week that you will go to book your exam in the portal. So again, no paper entries are being processed. And then the exam date is going to be on May 23rd. That is a Sunday at 10 a.m. And the time is local. And so it's going to be 10 a.m. for wherever you are taking the exam. The length of the exam, the duration of the exam rather, stays the same. And so if you are a lower grade student, you still have your hour and a half, and then the upper grades have their 2 or 3 hours. So it just depends on the duration, but everybody starts at 10 a.m. There are future sessions available after this April booking. So session 3 will become available, but that time, the date and time is again, information that can be found on the website. Okay, and then lastly, if you are ready to start, you want to book in April, what are the things that you have to remember? And again, I will not go through them in very detail until the very end for those people that are not familiar with how to sign up. Then we will go through all of this in detail. But once again, the first thing you need to do with ABRSM is go to the website, create an account. You need to have a contact ID and your login credentials handy. After that, of course, you go to the website, look under our exam, online music theory, make sure that you know what are the information required in order to take this exam. Dr. Ye talked about the resources and the materials, and then I also alluded to the 4 squares that are on the website. These are the 4 areas to read over and take a look at. And then of course, after that, we register for the exam in the same portal. Make sure you check the dates and fees so that you know what's required. And it's after that point that you run the system checks. So all of the technical things that I talked about, that will not happen until you have done all 3 of those steps of getting a portal ready, preparing, and then of course actually registering for the exam. So at this point, we're going to open the chat and the floor up for question and answer. After this, we will conclude our webinar, but anyone who would like to stay longer for the last portion, which is the actual step-by-step walkthrough of how to sign up for a portal and how to book an exam, you're welcome to do that. But otherwise, this is the point where we take a look at the chat and answer any questions. And then if there are anything we haven't answered from the chat or in our presentation, then we'll invite people to put up their hands, and then we'll unmute you if we haven't answered your questions. Okay, so Dr. Ye, is there anything that we did not cover that people have mentioned? And then, of course, if you have more questions, feel free to use the chat, everyone.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a question here. If a student passes the grade 5 level online, can they continue with 6 to 8 in person the following year? And the answer is yes, because it's just another, it's just, nothing has really changed in terms of, the kind of recognition your student is getting from taking the online test. The online test is exactly the same. It's just the format has changed. And so, yes, the simple answer is once your student has completed, they can go on to 6 through 8 in person at any time. Okay. I think Natalie has answered. Yes, the presentation we did, the relevant handouts will be emailed to the registrants today, so you will be getting those. So all the links that we talked about will be in that one handy spot that you can look at. There's a question. Some of my students have already studied the old version of the theory workbook. Do they need to restudy again from the new version, or the materials are pretty much the same? And yes, the core material is pretty much the same. And if you recall that one sheet, that there's a small table I have shown everybody with the small little items that are no longer either being removed or slight adjustment. For example, the chord progression. Chord progression is no longer just asked for the 6/4 to the 5/3, to recognize, but now is, can you identify the cadences? So therefore, you probably want to go over that with your candidate to make sure that they prepare for that. So do check with that syllabus change little chart there. I have also has a link for the entire syllabus for grades 1 to 5 that outlined all the things. Natalie, would you like to supplement on that?
Yeah, so there is a link that is in this presentation, and I can click on it at the end, that has the ABRSM's comparative chart between what's been improved or updated. But just as Dr. Ye has said, it's not a lot of changes specifically to the content, but more so the format that I think people need to be a little bit more familiar with or practice, because it's not pencil paper. Then everything isn't written out or actually written longhand. There is a lot of more immediate, clicking, dragging, comparing, or selecting that, and I don't think any of that is new for especially students of this generation. They've been doing this kind of thing a lot, but I think maybe doing it in this format for music theory isn't very familiar to us yet. And so I think the practice is more maybe in that format. But as far as the materials, I think they have largely stayed the same. And so, for example, this has been kind of the standard, the book that we have been using by Eric Taylor. And I was, kind of going between one student and the other with this material. And then, of course, the new material. And it's largely the same. I think the only difference is that this was a little bit more serious looking, and this one seems a little bit more fun. But, the content is largely the same.
Yes, and if I can supplement on that as well, is earlier on I mentioned that there is a link on the website that you can go to, in which we have provided you with that link, that you can actually click on the actual sample exam that look what it exactly looked like online, and the student can actually take that sample exam as a trial run, even before they register for the exam, so that's available to you on the ABRSM website. And so therefore, it's really, like Natalie pointed out, it's getting used to the format, how it looks like, how do you have to manipulate, the movement on the screen in order to answer the questions. The core material is still the same, quarter note is still going to be quarter note. Nothing has changed about that. Cadence is still cadence, but it's just being able to click, looking at that and understand. Sometimes they ask a true or false question, so it's the getting used to the format and the layout that is more important to look at.
Mm-hmm. So I'll take the last two questions very quickly because they're shorter. Do the exams need to be taken at an approved exam location? So this one, because it's online, it doesn't need to be at, say, a public venue as we have been doing in the past. The exam location could be your house, your own studio, anywhere that has stable internet connection, and then also anywhere that you're able to have webcam and a responsible adult. So in that regard, there's not a specific location. Now, one thing that you do have to make sure you do when you book the exam is to select that you are taking it at a public venue, even if your space is not a public space, but this is a public venue in that you are, taking the exam at an exam location, as opposed to private visit. And so that's probably a portion that people get confused, because a private visit is actually a totally different setup. That means you are not taking the ABRSM exam in the way that they have delivered, but in a totally different setup. And so please click the public venue as opposed to the private visit. And then the next question is the paper theory exam continue? Are we going to have it in the future? Again, in one of the slides, we mentioned that the paper exams are only available for grades 6 through 8. And so in that sense, paper theory exam is going to continue, but only for grades 6 through 8. Grades 1 through 5 is strictly online only, and we will no longer have paper exam for grades 1 through 5.
Okay, so there's a question, Natalie. I think that's in line with what you were talking about, private venue versus public venue. This is a question regarding, I have 3 students taking theory exams in May. Is it possible for them to take their exam in the same room with the one responsible adult present, or is it preferred that they should be separated?
Yeah, so there is, under the guidance document, specifically one area about multiple students. You do need to make sure that every student has access to their own screen, their own webcam, and their own browser. And there could be one responsible adult in that room, but the one responsible adult needs to be available to walk around or assist with any of the computers. And at the start, when you do your ID to the webcam, you do need to say, I am taking the exam at a multi-user center, and there is one responsible adult available, and then this responsible adult needs to show his face. And even if he has to walk away and do that for everyone, that is fine, but you do need to make sure that you say that you are at a multi-user center. So if this is a house, for example, that has 3 children, and there's only one parent available, obviously there's not 3 people that will be in the room. That's okay if the students cannot see each other's screens, and that there isn't, again, a reason to suspect that there's dishonesty, just because everything is recorded the entire time. And so when it's being evaluated in London, in the other end, they are looking to make sure that there is no cause for dishonesty, and that the responsible adult is actually there to ensure that the guidelines are being followed.
Now, as a follow-up to that question, Natalie, would that be considered a private venue, or is that still be considered a public venue?
So that's a trickier question. Yes, it is a public venue if, again, it is you are setting up or you're booking the exam in the way that we have described today. But the private visit is actually a totally different setup altogether. And I won't go into detail, but it has to do actually with people that wish to provide exams in the long term at their center. And so where, for example, I'm in Houston, we have a public center, but say in a small town in Iowa doesn't, and somebody is saying, I would like to continue to provide ABRSM exams always at my location, they're applying to be a private visit. And so they have kind of special allowances to do that. And so it's a really different setup altogether. So we don't use that option. So the people who know to use the option knows what it is. If you don't know what it is, that means it doesn't apply to you and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's a good one. If you have to ask, that probably doesn't apply to you.
Yeah, then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. So there are 3 more questions. There's one question about, and I'm not 100% sure whether I'm understanding it correctly, so I might need some clarification from the person that initiated this question. To pass a grade level, besides the online theory exam, do students need to also send recordings of their A, B pieces? Now, if I understand this correctly, you're asking about the performance grade, and then if they do the online theory, do they have to do the recordings for performance grades? Well, as always, theory exam is always separate, completely a separate entity, a separate event from the performance grades. So they do not have bearings on each other. You can be doing whatever level you are doing in the performance grades, and then it has no bearing on your theory, online theory, and vice versa, with the exception of the usual prerequisite of, if you're doing grade 6 performance grades, you of course should have to fulfill the prerequisite of passing grade 5 theory. And of course, that one is waived up till April 30th because of the cancellation of the March session. But other than that, there is no correlation between your performance grades or practical grades with your music theory exam. Music theory is just music theory. So I hope I answered that question correctly. And if not, please do just, raise your hand or type into the chat box again to clarify. Okay. The other question is, I like to take this one. Will future exam dates always be on a Sunday morning? And the answer is no. If you notice, later on, when they publish additional theory dates, they are on different days of the week in order to avoid the same people always having the same issues. So you will find some dates are going to be Saturday, like it used to be, always on a Saturday. Then you might see some that's on a Sunday. They have even had a couple planning in mind, probably for a Tuesday, and that's in the afternoon, not during school hours. So they're going to be scattered throughout because they're going to be additional dates. Instead of 3 sessions of music theory exam each year, they're going to expand that number to hopefully 6. And if that's the case, you're going to see them scattered, maybe a couple of them on Saturday, a couple of them on Tuesday, a couple of them on Sunday, something like that. And they might be adjusted according to the response of the bookings, because if we repeatedly have people all crowding into Tuesday and nobody booking on Sunday, we may see that there's a need to adjust that. So that is to come, because this is a new rollout. But the answer is, the long answer to your simple question is no. The exam date will not always be on a Sunday.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I know that everyone's been with us this entire hour and a half. So I will go ahead and move to our very last slide, which is a very nice short little video from the head examiner about music theory. And then we can conclude the webinar. But once again, if you are someone that would like to stay a little bit longer just to walk through how to create a portal online, please feel free to do so. If you already know and you've already created a portal, then you don't have to stay past this point. But please do stay for this short little video from the head examiner on what is the point of music.
When I'm listening to a candidate in an exam, I can hear in their playing or singing how well they understand music theory. Sometimes it sounds mechanical. The notes are in the right place, they follow each other in the right sequence, but the music's just missing. They miss out the colour, the expression, the connections in the music, because they don't understand what's going on under the surface. On the other hand, probably none of us took up a musical instrument in order to study music theory. Probably some people think of this as a rather dry, irrelevant, complicated thing to learn, something that feels more like maths than music, something to get through. And I'm sad about that. And I'm quite often asked the question, what's the point of music theory? The way I see it, actually, theory is to music what language is to speech. When we're very young, we learn how to make different noises, and we copy and mimic, and we hear things around us, and gradually we learn to talk. But later, if we'd also learn about spelling, punctuation, grammar, the rules of language, we begin to understand how language works. We learn to read books, write our own stories. We learn to communicate with words in different ways. It's the same with music. Theory helps you to know what to do by equipping you with senses and awareness that illuminate music more brightly for you than before. This opens up real possibilities, a new sound world full of tone, colour, shape, and character. When you understand how music works, that understanding actually gets you closer to the things you loved about music in the first place. The sound, the feeling, the energy, the expression. So to me, that's not only the point of music theory, that's the magic of music theory.
So I couldn't have said it any better. That was very, very well done. So thank you everyone for attending. We will share the slides and the handout with all the links. And there are many things that we actually haven't clicked on because of time, but you are more than welcome to go through the handout and just explore all the resources that are available.